are live.
Hi, hello.
Hi, everybody. Sitting at home in isolation. Hello.
Welcome to the launch of Danielle Binks' wonderful debut middle grade. The year the maths changed. Yay!
Yay!
Not quite the launch that you probably planned, but we're going to make the most of it. We're going to have fun. And personally, not that this is a good situation, but I'm personally glad that I can be here and connect with you for it, which I wouldn't have been able to do otherwise. So
yeah, I was gonna ask if you could talk about that without crying. You're meant to be in America celebrating your book, which, by the way, hi, Jenna Guillaume is launching my book, which was not the plan, but oh my gosh, I'm so excited. Woo! Not the plan, but so thrilled to have you launching me, Jenna. I'll pay you later, but I really appreciate it. I love you. Thank you very much.
I'm thrilled to be here. But before we get right into it, I would like to begin by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land that I am on, which is the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation. And how about you, Danielle?
I'm on the lands of the Bunurong people, and I would just like to also acknowledge our Indigenous storytellers and the lands that we're all on. No matter where you are tuning into this, we are all on the lands of the Kulin Nation, and sovereignty was never ceded. So thank you very much, and let's kick this off.
Let's get right into it. Okay, so Danielle Binks, I'm sure, is someone who needs no introduction in the youth space, but I will anyway. She's my personal friend and agent. And so I think people probably do know you as an agent and also as a YA blogger, and someone who's been an advocate in the youth space for a long time, really championing youth literature in Australia. But now you have your very own book out there. You've been a writer for a long time, and this is your debut novel published. Okay. So how does it feel?
Really good. I was saying to Way before, who is up there as the voice of God, controlling us like a puppet master, but I was saying to Way before that my only other experience was the Love Oz YA anthology, which was me and 9 other authors, which was an experience unto itself. And now I'm doing this more solo than normal even. So I've had opposite ends of the spectrum of me and 9 other authors launching a book, and now me literally in isolation launching a book. So it's been really interesting. I do not know what normal is when it comes to launching a book. So I look forward to that one day hopefully happening, a normal book launch. But for now, this is pretty fabulous. Yeah. I've got a hair mask in. I'm going to go watch Killing Eve after this. I would much prefer to be at my local bookshop, Farrell's in Mornington. Hi. Who do have stock in, and I'll be going down and signing books for them very carefully and safely tomorrow. But this has been pretty great. I've had a wonderful day of people sending me beautiful messages, and I've seen copies of my books in the wild. I didn't think I would see that. I've seen evidence that it is a thing that exists. I am told it is out there. It's a real book. I didn't know if it would feel like it was a real book, but after today and the love and outpouring it's had and that I've had, thank you so much, everyone. I'm feeling pretty good. This is okay. We're all going to be okay.
Oh, I'm so glad. I'm so glad that you have that feeling that this is real, because it is so hard, I think, when you're you're writing alone and then you get your editors and everyone on board, but it's still such an internal process. So it is, you need that moment of tangible, this is real, this is happening.
Yeah, I feel a little bit like Fiona Apple, who just released obviously her first album in eons, Fetch the Bolt Cutters. I feel a little bit like her, but she's like, I'm really happy to be in isolation, but the one time I want to go out, I can't. I feel a little bit like that.
Yeah.
I'm fine in isolation, but the one time I wanted to actually socialize, but it's okay. It's all good. I feel like I'm also more social than ever. I have a pretty full dance card. There's lots of stuff happening online. I've been connecting with people quite a fair bit. It's all good. It's fine. Yeah. It's lovely.
I definitely have felt like that as well. But let's talk about your wonderful book, The Year the Maps Changed. I read it over the weekend, and It was such a delight. I knew it would be, but I was glad to have my suspicions confirmed that it was wonderful and beautiful.
How awkward if you hated it and then you still agreed to do this. I would have made you still do this, but thank you.
Like, look, it was fine, but no, no, it really is a beautiful book. And I want to hear, what's your elevator pitch?
Oh gosh. Why do you make me do this? I get my authors to do elevator pitches. I suck at them. Look, it is historic fiction set in 1999. It is a year in the life of a young woman called Winifred Fred Owen Ritchie. And it is basically what happens when a crisis happening on the other side of the world comes to her back door. And it is a book about the power of community and the power of realizing that we are all global citizens who can do something to contribute to the kindness pandemic, if you want to call it that, with a very modern 2020 spin, to putting some good into the world.
And why yeah, that's great. So I know you have been writing for a long time, but like, why was this the story that you wanted to have as your debut, and why is this like your heart story that you just had to get out there?
I never thought I would write historic fiction. I never in a million years thought that would be me. When it was kind of announced that this book was coming out, somebody that I went to RMIT with studying professional writing and editing actually said to me, "Hey, Danny, remember when you were writing a werewolf romance?" I was like, "Yeah, I do." That's what I thought I was going to put out as my first book. But it turns out if you really want to, put your head down and write something, you have to really care about it. And this is the story I cared about. And I cared about it for a lot of different reasons. I cared about it because it was something that happened to where I live. It was something that happened when my protagonist is in 1999, which does make me ancient, yes. And it was a topic to do with refugees, but also with blended families, with coming of age. It was just a whole lot of different topics that really mattered to me. So I'm shocked that I wrote historic fiction. I truly can't believe I've written a book with a map in it. That was a shock to me. I kind of get why fantasy writers do their shtick. It's really fun having a map in your book.
So cool.
I'm shocked that I wrote middle grade and historic fiction, but it just turned out that from when I started out my writing journey back in RMIT to now, I've grown a lot. And in that span, I figured out the things that mattered to me. And the things that matter to me are coming of age stories, are Australian stories, funnily enough. Spoiler alert for anyone who knows me. And it all kind of fell on this particular timeline and this particular event that happened in our not too recent past. And it was just, in a lot of ways, the perfect story for me to tell. And I hope I've done it justice.
So what did you start with? Was it the story of the refugees, or was it, Fred and her kind of family dynamic? What was the initial inspiration?
The initial inspiration came back in 2016 when, back in 2016, a few politicians were talking about reopening the disused quarantine station down at Point Nepean. And they were talking about reopening it and turning it into a detention centre. And very luckily, there was a lot of pushback from the community saying no, because the politicians were citing Operation Safe Haven as an example of when that place had been successfully used as a detention centre. But a lot of the locals actually said, no, it wasn't a detention centre then, it was a safe haven. It was part of Operation Safe Haven. And they kind of pushed back and said, to make it a detention centre now would fly in the face of everything that happened in 1999 that we felt so positive and good about. And I remembered, very vaguely, I remembered those events of Operation Safe Haven. So when that was kind of happening in the media at the time, I decided to go back and sort of research that time period. And I found that Operation Safe Haven in 1999 was a real turning point in Australian politics and society in a lot of ways. I found that it was Operation Safe Haven in 1999 happening alongside the East Timorese crisis, also in 1999, that kind of led us on our path to the current inhumane treatment of refugees and asylum seekers. And then you have events in 2001, like in August of 2001 there was the Children Overboard affair. And then in September of 2001 was 9/11. But you can kind of trace it back from Operation Safe Haven happening around June and the Howard Ruddock combination government making new policy that introduced temporary asylum. So they weren't going to commit to permanent resettlement for refugees and people seeking help. They were only going to give them temporary asylum, which is a sort of framework that we still have to this day. So the initial spark was current conversations of how Australia has started treating refugees and asylum seekers and our terrible human rights track record of treating them. That because it was happening in 2016 in the news media, I was able to trace back and look at what they were referencing, a memory that I very vaguely had. And in my research, I found, hey, this is actually a lightning spark in Australian political life and society. So that was kind of what led me on that path initially.
It's really interesting. And I want to touch on your research a bit more in a second, but just, I guess it's quite a heavy topic. Yeah. And, you know, I feel like it's something that you could have approached from any number of ways. And this is something that from the bookcase on Instagram also wondered about. Why did you choose middle grade for this story?
Really, really good question. In my very, very first planning stages for this, I did wonder if, because people mostly knew me as a young adult supporter, if I should make it young adult. And before I had any sort of idea, put any words down, I thought, well, what if I make it a male teenage character and I make it young adult? And I don't know why I was thinking that. I think I was thinking that to try and give myself distance. But when I had that thought in my head, no words came. I couldn't really think of anything to say. It was when I decided to make my protagonist the same age that I was in 1999 that all of that came flooding back. And I don't know what it says about me that I was able to transpose myself back into being an 11 going on 12-year-old girl, but I found that really easy to tap into. And the second I did tap into that, Fred's voice came through loud and clear. And the second I decided that I was going to commit to middle grade and I was going to commit to setting this on the Mornington Peninsula where I grew up and keeping all those things close to home, the second I committed to that, on day one, I wrote the prologue and it just came out of me. And the prologue hasn't changed from that day to now. It remained the exact same word for word. And it was the framework that I wrote to. And for a long time, when I wasn't really writing, I was procrastinating and researching. For a long time, I wondered if I could just publish a prologue and call it a day. You can't. I had to become an agent to discover that you can't. But yeah, it was the second that I allowed myself to give more of myself to Fred as a character that I actually had a voice in my head talking to me who was Fred. And it was because I allowed myself to tap into being that age again, which I find really easy to do. I think that was the age that I had the most heightened emotions. And now when I read middle grade from other people who I love, like Gary D. Schmidt, from Jacqueline Woodson, from Nova Wheatman, from Emily Gale, all of them, Leanne Hall, Fiona Hardy, hi, she's one of mine, Julianne Negri, another one of mine. But when I read those books at a middle grade, I instantly connect with those characters because it is an age that I can just so easily remember the huge swings I was going through. So that's why I did it. It was the way that I was able to write, was by tapping back into what it is to be 11 going on 12.
I love that. And this is maybe a marketing thing, you tell me, but like, why did you decide middle grade for a middle grade audience as opposed to, you know, something like, you know, I know it's cliche to mention it, but like the book Thief, right, which was marketed as adult, but has that kind of middle grade age character. Like, what is the distinction there?
Oh, that's a really good question. And I did wonder if the stuff I was writing in The Year the Map Changed was too heavy for kids. There's a lot of heavy stuff in there. There is a lot of heavy stuff in there. And I did wonder if I was doing that thing of, you're right, writing an adult book with a child protagonist, which I feel like is a way that adult authors sometimes do that, trying to get the best of both worlds of all readerships. And it works. It works really, really well. Marcus Zusak is a great example. Brilliant book. Craig Silvey's done it as well. Jasper Jones, an adult book with a child protagonist, etc. But also very accessible to young adult readers. I did worry that I was writing it too dark, but then once I was conscious of writing it as middle grade, and once I was conscious of it's important to me to make this a story that is accessible and entertaining for kids, that was when I was able to start pulling back a bit, to start shaping my voice a bit more. And it kind of helped me align more to the middle grade audience once I decided that I needed more humor in there, I needed more action in there, just to keep kids reading. Once you're very aware of who your audience is, it gives you even more of a framework as a writer. It gives you more tools to start using because you become very aware of language. You become very aware of the lines that you will not cross. And I didn't cross them. I could have put a lot more like graphic, awful content in there. Of course I could have for the stuff I was writing about, but I didn't do that the second that I decided that I was going to write this for kids. And I think it is a book that it's heavy, but I think kids can handle it. Yeah. It's definitely for the older end of the middle grade spectrum. I'm hearing it's great for 10 to 14-year-olds. Mm-hmm. And obviously 10-year-olds, there's even a spectrum within that of 10-year-olds who are advanced readers and those who are not, of course. But I also, when I was tapping back into being an 11 going on 12-year-old, I remembered being a kid who just wanted to read sad books, who just wanted books that would make me cry. And it was beautiful when I did an event back when we were doing events. And I think it was Ella from The Younger Son in Yarraville, which, hi, I love The Younger Son. She said that she had a young girl in one of her book clubs who frequently comes up to her and says, I just want to read a long, sad book. And I was like, that's me. Yeah. That's who I wrote for. I was the kid in year 6 who discovered Melina Marchetta and thought, this is me emotionally laid out. This is perfect. So I kind of wrote the little me as well. And also the kids out there who I know have wonderful emotional intelligence that can handle this book, and I hope get a lot out of it.
Yeah, definitely. I would say for me, like, it definitely there's definitely the dark stuff in there, but I think like, I don't want to put people off that think, oh, it'll be too much for kids, because I think it's told in such a gentle way that is really accessible and allows kids to deal with those kind of subjects and process those kind of emotions without without overloading them. I think you did a really good job with that.
Thank you. I'm also a really big Morris Gleitzman fan. He's I've been reading him since I was in primary school, and I still read him now as an adult. And something that he once said at a writer's workshop at the Wheeler Centre was, if it's in the world, it's for them. And Morris Gleitzman, as many people will know, has written everything from the AIDS crisis to the Holocaust for really young kids. And he's done it in a really accessible and wonderful way that opens their world up more and gives them knowledge about events that are awful, but it's stuff that they should know about. And I've always loved when he said, if it's in the world, it's for kids. And I think I've taken that to heart a little bit as well.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Well, you've mentioned Melina Marchetta and Morris Gleitzman, and this girl writes on Twitter actually wanted to know which writers influenced you the most. So anyone else besides those two?
Everyone knows I love Melina Marchetta. Let's just put that out there again. Queen Melina, who has read my book and said something wonderful and lovely about it, which is just whatever else 2020 throws at me, I'm good. I'm done. I've had that. I'm happy.
Can you imagine? Sorry. Sorry to interrupt you, but can you imagine telling 1999 Danielle, who was reading Melina Marchetta, you know, that's so wonderful.
No, that she would smack you across the face and be like, go home. Who else did I read? When I first read Rebecca Stead, the US author, I thought that I had found a kindred spirit in an author. And she was somebody who opened me up to middle grade as a readership as well. Once I read Rebecca Stead and When You Reach Me, winning the Newbery Award over in America, which is sort of their big Oscars for middle grade fiction, which unfortunately in a lot of only for American fiction, that's not an international prize. But Rebecca Stead was the first author who made me go,
oh no. Oh no. Oh no.
Newbery medal and reminded me what it is to be 12 years old, 13 years old, and it just in a really wonderful way. I also am a huge Kath Crowley fan from the Love Oz YA side of things. I'll just go, it's Kath Crowley, Fiona Wood, Simone Howe. We know that they are the trio. They are the Three Musketeers. They are fabulous. And it's people like you. It's the authors who I'm discovering now, and not just those that I discover myself from my own list. But it's Way. Hi, it's Way, the voice of God. It's Nina Kenwood. It's Leanne Hall. Oh, when I first read Leanne Hall, are you kidding me? I thought magical realism done right. I love her. It's everyone that I'm discovering right now as well, but definitely Melina Marchetta was one of those ones who came along, and I thought I was Josie Ella Grundy. I thought she was writing about my family. And also Ruth Park. I have to put it out there. Ruth Park is a lodestone for me. Playing Beatty Bow is an absolute favourite.
I noticed the reference Fred reads that book in, and I was like, hello.
Yes. Hi.
Yeah.
I can, one of the joys of writing a book set in a contemporary context is you can put in little asides and pop culture references, which I tried to do because that was really fun. And I think in the next book that I'm writing, I'll do it again.
Yeah.
I'll totally do it again. So just, you know, they're like little Easter eggs.
Yeah.
Like on the ye olde DVDs used to do. Yeah, I like doing that. It's little pieces of me that nobody else may care about, but someone like you could be like, oh, I see that you put a little something in there.
Well, touching on that, we had an Instagram comment from Megan Meets World who wanted to know, how did you make the 90s setting authentic? And I would also like to know, in addition to that, how did you strike the balance between having it authentic but not overloading it with references?
Yeah. So first off, the 90s setting really intimidated me because, again, I didn't know that I was someone who's going to write historic fiction. And one of my very good friends, who's also just a complete YA brainiac, Adele Walsh, snarky wench, but Adele Walsh, she has frequently said that it really gets her goat when authors set books in the era in which they were teenagers. And I kind of thought, ooh, 1999, that's me. That's when I was, I'm really sorry. But I had a very good historic reason for setting it then. So I was kind of like, that's my armor. You know, I'm setting it then because of Operation Safe Haven, which I can point to and say was set in 1999. But I was very aware of, I can't just overload this with 90s stuff because that would bring me joy. I could have, and that would have been really fun for me, but I couldn't do that because, and this is hard to wrap your head around, but lots of kids who'll be reading this weren't even born in 1999. So it is truly history for them, and they do not care that much.
Yeah.
Like, really, they do not care about the ins and outs of the 90s the way that we do. They are not at all nostalgic for it. They do not care. It's like when I go and talk to schools now and I do big classes of kids, if I ask them who here has read the Harry Potter books, surprisingly not many hands go up because those books are old for them. Lots of them have seen the movies and obviously they know what Harry Potter is, but reading the books themselves, lots of them haven't. Because imagine when you were their age and your parents were like, read this book from 21 years ago. You would be like, no, I've got other stuff I need to do. So very much I was very aware of the 90s setting and I didn't want to overload it. I knew that was quite crass. And I knew that young readers today would not care. And I would just be being a self-indulgent author and I didn't want to do that. But having said that, I did indulge myself with a few references like Heartbreak High and Pacey Witter, Joshua Jackson, and 10 Things I Hate About You and LipSmackers, but they're sprinkled in there very, very sparingly. And I was actually really pleased that my editor didn't have to tell me to rein it in. I didn't go so overboard that I was like, you know, Tamagotchis, Tarzos, although I think Tarzos are in there. I'm so sorry. But yeah, I didn't put in like Furbies and everything like that. I really did rein it in because I knew that kids would have a limit, and fair enough too.
Yeah. And then on the subject of, I guess, authenticity and research, we had a question from Twitter from Ross Mrs. who wanted to know how you did your research into the refugees and the Operation Safe Haven.
So first of all, I started off by doing a lot of reading. I'm a history geek. So if you tell me to go off and research, I'm going to go to the library first. And that was actually what I did. I went to Singleton in New South Wales and I went to their public library there because Singleton was one of the locations of Operation Safe Haven. I went to their fabulous public library, had the most wonderful library to do with their time with Operation Safe Haven, they had kept in their archives, and it was wonderful. I poured through those. I took so many photos and just catalogued everything basically. And I was also very lucky that for their local Singleton newspaper, they actually had employed a refugee correspondent. So I even got a lot of insight through reading articles that this person had written and photographs as well. They also employed a refugee photographer to represent the Haven at the time, and they did wonderful things that I put in the book. Like they would publish their newspaper both in Albanian and English side by side, so they were just wonderful. That was incredible. And thank you to public libraries. I tracked down photographers like Emmanuel Santos, who were the official sort of photographer of the Operation Safe Haven at Point Nepean, and then I found some chat groups that were American, who were refugees who had banded together from Operation Provide Refuge, which was the American cohort of Operation Safe Haven. they had sort of congregated online in a lot of places, and I was able to just email them and say, can I just ask you a few questions? And I got to do that, which was wonderful. I got to chat with some refugees who were quite open to chatting to me, but not having their name mentioned, which is fair enough. And it's also because the Americans had more permanent refugees placed in America after Operation Provide Refuge. So they had really quite lovely memories of that time, of actually finding their first home, after leaving Kosovo. And then I did a lot of reading of kind of political papers from that time, which, with the gift of hindsight, 5 years or so after 1999, they were able to look back at that time and see it with a bit of a bird's eye view of how it fit into the whole political context within Australia. So people like Peter Mayers, I think it was, wrote some really great books about how Operation Safe Haven fit within Australia's entire refugee and asylum seeker context. All of that was really great. So it was kind of, and this was 5 years of research. I procrastinated and called it research for 5 years. But I'm also a huge history geek, and I'm somebody who actually really likes the research side of things, I've discovered. So I did that all with a lot of joy in my heart as well, even though I should have given myself a quicker kick up the bum to actually get it written than 5 years. But yeah, I did a lot of research all over the place.
And I noticed one of the things I loved was the way Fred and her friends engage with the news, because I think, it's a misconception that some people have that kids aren't engaged with the world around them and the political.
Yeah.
So I love that. But I was wondering, are those kind of news headlines and news clippings that are in the book, are they real? Or did you kind of like fictionalize them off real clippings?
No, they're fictionalized off real clippings. And that was from the Singleton, New South Wales Public Library newspaper clippings that I was poring over. They're kind of fictionalized largely from that collection. But I studied journalism at Monash right after I left high school. So I have a real respect for journalism and the role that the press plays in informing us. And I kind of wanted to impart a little bit of that onto kids. And I tried to put in some sort of modern context as well of, there's the vox pops, which is people's opinions versus hard news, and the kids trying to discern what is fact and what is people's just putting their opinions out there, which I think was a bit of a more modern spin on it. But yeah, I have a very healthy appreciation for the news and journalism and the role it plays in society, and I wanted to impart that on my child characters as well, which is why there's a lot of them listening to the news radio, reading newspapers. I wanted to kind of encourage that in kids, because that's part of being a global citizen, is being informed.
Yeah, definitely. We have a couple more questions from social media that we put a call out up. So Dialeaf Hall on Instagram wants to know what you've learnt from editing other writers that helped you with your own writing. And then on the flip side, Sell Right Stuff on Twitter said, what's something that surprised you about being on the other side of the process?
Something that surprised me, I'll take that one first. Something that surprised me about being on this side of the process as author, not agent, is I am just as neurotic as all of my authors. And I say that lovingly, staring into the eyes of one of my authors, who I frequently tell is fabulous, and I don't think she believes me. I'm just as neurotic as all of them. I think, and I say that very lovingly, I think all authors are a little bit neurotic, and I found that I couldn't talk myself down off of the mental ledge that we all throw ourselves out onto and convince ourselves that we've committed crimes against the written word, when actually it's just a first draft. It's okay, we can walk this back. So that was the thing that surprised me. And what was the first question? What have I learned?
What did you learn from editing other writers that helped you with your own writing?
I did learn that the finished product that you see on the shelves is not the thing that it starts out as, which is really hard to remember, because we all compare ourselves to finished books. And I did that as well. In my 5 years of research, I read so much middle grade that also kind of stunted me from writing my own, because I was comparing myself to finished products that had been edited and copy edited and structurally edited and talked about for years and years and years. And I was comparing my first draft that I was still trying to get through to a finished product. And the reality is, nobody is that good first go out. Jack Kerouac may have thought he was, but as I've recently discovered, Truman Capote accused him of, that's not writing, that's typing, if you don't go back and edit what you wrote. So Truman Capote, get it? You take down Jack Kerouac. Yeah, it was the knowledge that nobody's first draft is good. Nobody's first draft ends up being their final product, and to remember that. And then to also remember that it doesn't really work if you say, hey, it gets really good on page 150. That doesn't really work. If it gets good on page 150 or it gets really good in chapter 5, why isn't it really good in chapter 1?
Yeah.
Why isn't chapter 5 chapter 1? That's something that I constantly do as an editor of my author's work. I'll constantly be like, this is where it gets interesting. Let's start it from here.
Yeah.
And then to apply that to my own a little bit. Yeah, it's really hard to do. I can't edit myself very well. That's why I needed the Hachette team to actually do a good job on the edit, because I cannot edit myself. It's kind of like how some people can't braid their own hair. Yeah,
I cannot braid
no,
hair.
you can't. It's a lock in your brain, and I can't really edit myself.
Yeah. You're too close.
So I needed someone else. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Forest for the trees, definitely.
Yeah. Well, and then we have Bookish Universe on Instagram said, if you can go back to the past, I don't know if she means all the way back to 1999 or just more recently, but what advice would you give to past you about writing?
Get it done. My gosh, if I had been quicker, I wouldn't have been a debut author in 2020, Danielle. If I'd had like a Bill and Ted's moment to go back to my past self, I would probably say, don't take 5 years procrastinating with your research, because funnily enough, researching isn't writing. Writing is writing, Danielle. Writing is writing, Danielle. And then I'd warn her about the pandemic that's coming. Yeah, I would probably just say research is not writing. Writing is writing, and to stop being afraid of how terrible it is, and to know that you can edit it.
Yeah,
basically.
But did you find like all that research, was it all helpful, or did you actually think when you were writing, you're like, oh, I didn't need all this information, it's too much?
No, it did actually help me, because I'm a pantser. I don't write to outline, but because I had done all the research, I knew all of the markers for the timeline that I had to hit. So when I actually sat down and wrote the thing in a fever of about 3 months, I didn't have to reference a lot of stuff. I just wrote it because I knew it all. I knew every single marker and point I had to hit in time. And Fred had been kind of in the back of my mind the whole time, struggling to get out, waiting for me to sit down and write her, that I had all of the backbone for the history stuff and the research. I didn't really have to second guess myself until I was going through the edits.
Yeah.
But because I'd done so much research, I had the structure that I needed. So I was kind of a plotter within a pantser in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
I'm still someone who claims I need to pants, or else I just, let me out of this prison.
Yeah.
But it helped that I was a big research nerd and history geek, and then I had all of that in my arsenal as well. Yeah.
See, perhaps all of that was just part of your process. And, if you had tried to write the 5 years ago, nothing would have come out, because you would have been like, what am I doing?
Yeah, but I can guarantee you I've still got my family sitting at home shaking their fists at the screen being like, yeah, you should have released it, 3 years ago, Danielle.
Yeah.
I can see my phone lighting up out of the corner of my eye. I'm not going to look at it. I know who's texting me. I don't need to hear it. I know. I'm a debut in 2020. I know it would have been great to do this 2 years ago. I get it.
But on the flip side, on the positive side, you don't have anyone in the room telling you those things, which you might have had at a traditional lodge. So you can.
Oh, I would have been heckled if this was happening at Farrell's in Mornington. I'm pretty sure I would have been heckled. I'm pretty sure the hors d'oeuvres would have been thrown at my face.
Yeah.
But just so they know, I am aware.
Well, look, we're running out of time, but I just want to super quickly do a pop quiz with you, a 1999 pop quiz, because the bookies say 1999. So I want to test your knowledge of how much you remember. Okay.
Yes,
ready?
Let's do it.
Okay, what was the number one song on the ARIA charts in 1999?
Oh my gosh, I looked this up as well.
I think you mentioned it in the book, maybe.
Oh my gosh, do I? Do I have it in the book?
Maybe ignore that, because I don't want to put you off just in case you didn't, but I feel like...
Oh my gosh. No, my first instinct was to say like a Killing Heidi, but I'm pretty sure that's like a 2000, 2001. Would it have been a Britney Spears song? Oh my gosh. Let's go with like a Backstreet's Back or something.
Mambo Number 5 by Lou Bega.
Oh, wow.
I mean, not really close, but we'll give it,
Okay, that's terrible. Okay.
Which season of Dawson's Creek was on air in 1999?
Oh my gosh, Jenna. Oh my gosh. Wow. I wanted to say 4. I'm gonna say like 2.
Yes.
Yes.
Well done.
I wanted to say 4 because 4 is the best season, but in my head I'd done that research and it was 2. Yeah.
It was 2. Okay, what was the top movie at the box office in Australia?
Oh my gosh, in Australia. Okay. Oh. I'm just gonna guess and say, was it The Mummy?
No, it was The Sixth Sense.
Oh, kind of. I was in the genre.
Yeah.
Not really.
Yeah. Well,
yeah.
They have a "the" in the title.
Don't throw me a bone. Okay. I have to rewatch the Mummy movies as well. They're so good. Okay.
Yeah. True or false? 1999 was the final season of Heartbreak High.
True.
Yes, correct. Okay, and finally,
I knew that.
This is kind of a trickier question, I think. Who won the Gold Logie?
Oh, come on. All right, I'm going to guess. Was this, okay, I was going to say Lisa McCune, or was it the era of like Rose McManus? No, I'm going to say Lisa McCune. She won like 6. Yes, because she won like 20 of them. I think she was the only Gold Logie winner the whole time I was in primary school. I used to watch Blue Heelers as well. Oh, yay.
Well done. Well, that wraps up. I think I can definitively say you are an expert on 1999, so well done.
Yeah, the Sixth Sense got me. Gosh darn it. Let me also just say that for those watching at home, Oz Authors Online on May 7, Voice of God, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's going to be Eliza Henry Jones in conversation with Nina Kenwood. This book is so good. It is big-hearted and beautiful, and I gobbled it up, I think, in about 2 days. So tune in for this one. And with my author hat on for just a second, I also wanted to say happy book birthday to Kay and Anna. Please Don't Hug Me and Peter Lies Ready Normal are out now. They are beautiful books. You'll be seeing these guys on Oz Authors Online as well. So that would be really cool. And then to thank everyone for tuning in, I also thought, since my character in the year the maps changed is 11 going on 12, I thought I would show you what 11 going on 12-year-old Danielle looked like.
Cute.
Will I try and recreate
that was good. Good job.
Hair, kind of trying to beat the wave.
Yeah, where's your curl?
The wave. Yeah.
I had that as well. There's photos of me where my hair is like just this big ball of fluff because I would brush it every day. So
and now look at me. I'm a happy, proud, curly girl. So there you go. That's a little treat that you get on Oz Authors Online. Tuning in.
So if people want to get their hands on your lovely book, how can they?
Yes. Ooh, we will have. You'll notice that we have some links. If you're watching this on Oz Authors Online, we have some links to some independent Australian bookshops down below. I would love it if you could throw some sales to Farrell's Bookshop in Mornington, where I was meant to be launching today, and I love them. And spoiler alert, they actually appear in the book, which is also historically accurate.
A couple of mentions.
And I would also love it if you could throw some love to Better Read Than Dead in Newtown and Sydney, who I was also meant to be doing an event with on May 20th, I think, with Will Kostakis, who's fabulous, also by Will Kostakis' books. But those two are the really big ones. But also, if you want to buy books that will be signed, I'm going to be doing signings for the Little Book Room, Antipodes Bookshop, Rosebud Book Barn, Mary Martin, a whole lot of others, Little Book Room, Reading, who I'm also doing an event with on Thursday with Carly Findlay. So just throw some love behind your local independent bookshops, please. And if you don't have the money to do that, completely understand. If you could also ask your public library to order books in, that would be most helpful and very much appreciated. But if you can, back your bookshop, that would be fabulous.
Definitely. Well, thank you so much, Danielle, and congratulations again. I think we're going to hang around for the after
chats.
After
party. Oh, after party. I like that. Ooh.
Yeah. But yeah, congratulations again, and thank you so much for including me in the launch of your book. I'm so honored, and everybody should definitely read it. I think you can read it at any age, but definitely if you have kids in your life, buy it for them, give it to them. They will love it.
Thank you so much. And I do believe that now we're going to have your husband, Chris Guillaume, giving us a bit of an Outlander show. So stick around for that for the book chat. I've been promised it. But no, seriously, if you don't do that, you should also look at Chris's workout videos for any authors at home. He's done posture workouts, which I found very, very helpful. But I will find the Outlander acting even more helpful. But Thank you so much. Thank you to Highway, and Oz Authors Online. Thank you for all the love today. And it's launched.
Yay. It's official. It's a real book.
Yay! Hurrah!
Yay.
Thank you so much. All right. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Do we stop now, Wade?
Yes, you can. Sorry, I was hitting the buttons. I have to hit the buttons in the right order. Yay! There was oh my God. You guys did so well. You remembered everything. Now, there was a tiny little video hiccup at some point, which had me scrambling, looking for internet connection, but I think I solved it, so it's okay. But
Okay.
I didn't want to interrupt it because I think there wasn't anything that could be done, but I think it was all okay. But it was so good. You had so many people watching. I think we hit like 60 at some point, so well
That's
done.
amazing.
Yeah. Will was there a little bit, I think. Yeah, lots of familiar voices. Oh, familiar typing avatars. Well done.
Yay!
I think I dropped out. Wait, was Danielle still on?
Yeah, I think so. There was a couple moments where the audio was a little bit, and I couldn't tell whether it was me, whether it was you, or whatever. But I think overall it was okay. There was a couple little moments, but everything recovered. Nothing. Yeah. Exactly.
I've got 21 messages on my phone of people being like, "Yay!"
There was a lot of call outs to Greg, I think, which I think is that your dad?
That's my dad. Someone
Oh my God,
dad.
there were a lot of call outs on the chat to Greg, and I was like,
Wait.
Oh, it's
oh,
saying
we're
that
still
we're
online.
still on.